Now we're going to talk about the Burndown report. We've spent a little time looking at the Burndown report in regards to how during you're running a sprint iteration and how you use that to do that with your team. But in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the report itself, how we read it, and then what kinds of data we can use for a Burndown report. So, as you know already, Burndown is used to measure progress within an iteration and helps us understand, are we on track or off track from ideal? The vertical axis represents the total amount of work that exists inside of that iteration, and the horizontal axis represents time. We'll look at that in a minute. Burndowns tell a story. The more you look at them, the more you understand what may or may not have happened during an iteration, and you get pretty good at telling a story from looking at those burndowns. In a burndown, we can burn down all kinds of things. So we can burn down points, we can burn down hours, we can burn down risk, and there's other things too. And we'll take a look at how to set that up in JIRA. All right, so in this first example, let me walk you through what you're looking at here. So first of all, you can see on the vertical axis, we have story points. So in this iteration, we've got about 36 story points at the beginning of this sprint. You can see at the end, we actually want to burn down to 0 story points. So ideally handling all of the work that was committed to in this iteration. On the bottom, you can see we have time, right? So this would be looks like a 2-week sprint. And you can see that as we go through time, the idea is that we burn down those story points down to 0. The gray line here represents the ideal scenario. So assuming that the work is happening correctly, we would want to be close to that gray line, and that would show the pattern that we're looking for. And then these gray bars here represent a weekend or a time that the team is not working. And so you can see that they're flat because ideally we're not working on the weekends, right? You can also see there's a blue checkbox in the upper right there that says show non-working days. You can uncheck that and get rid of those weekends if you don't want to look at that. Now, we were talking before about how burndowns can tell you a story about the sprint. So one of the things that you want to keep an eye on is you'll see in the beginning of this particular sprint, we started with 25 story points and we didn't quite burn down to 0. But you can see there's a little hump here, and this hump here is caused by work being added to the sprint once it's already been started. All right, so let's take a look at JIRA, and I want to show you a couple of things here. First of all, the way to get to a burndown is to go to Reports, and you'll see here your burndown chart is the first item that you'll see here. And so you can get to your burndown that way. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is burning down other values. All right, so if we go back to our backlog, in the upper right corner here, you can see we have our board settings. So we'll click that. And then under your settings, you've got estimation. And you can see here we're estimating in story points. All right, but you've also got the ability to estimate in original time as well. Then you can use this time tracking, and you can actually, instead of seeing story points on that vertical axis, you'll actually see hours. And so you can burn down hours. And as you move through the sprint items, let's say you've got an item that started with 10 hours, you can then update that value to be, say, 8 hours or 6 hours, and it will actually burn down the amount of hours as you move through the sprint. All right, in the next video, we're going to talk about the sprint report.